help guide you with these steps to grasp your confidence and own your power. I love that.
Look around the room. You'll see that you're not so alone after all, and that unconfidence could look like any of us. Maybe your whole life you have been told that the best wins, but I'm telling you right now that the best known will win.
What if you weren't afraid of failure? That's an interesting question to start this podcast, right? Now, so many of us, unfortunately, are guided by decisions that are fear-based, and we're afraid of failure. It could be maybe we're afraid of messing up. Maybe we're afraid of getting rejected. Maybe we're afraid of all sorts of things. And these fears actually hold us back from pursuing our greatest potential in life. So what if you weren't afraid of failure? How would your life change? How would your career change? How much more money would you make, right? These are the questions I'm thinking about as I'm thinking of this word failure. So a little segue here. I'm proud to introduce our next guest. And she has this actually on her LinkedIn headline. It says, "What if you weren't afraid of failure?" So I thought this would be a great segue to get into this show today. My next guest, her name is Alexandria, and I would love to welcome you to the show. Please introduce yourself, my friend.
Hi, Tara. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. So, I am Alexandra Nunez, and I am a coach. I help leaders and solopreneurs to create balance in their lives. And I've been doing this for the past year. And this was led to, as a response to that question, not being afraid to fail allowed me to start a new career.
It's not easy though, right? I mean, I checked out your background. I love your accent, by the way. I'll just say that first. I checked out your background, similar, right? We both come from corporate, both have MBAs, finance, right? We're both into the finance and all that stuff and very corporate driven. But we both took a leap of faith. That wasn't easy. I remember it certainly wasn't easy for me. There was a lot of fear that went into that. Oh my gosh, am I going to be able to make the same amount of money I did in corporate? Am I going to be able to do this successfully? I have a family to think about. There's a lot of, variables and factors that went into this. And it was not an easy decision. I would love to hear a little bit about that kind of area in your life when you were before you made the leap. Because a lot of folks are in the same group right now, Alexandria. They're in corporate and they're not sure what to do next. So take us back to that time before you made this leap. What did that look like for you?
Well, like you said, this is not an easy decision, and for me, it took years to get to it. It took many years of reading, reflecting about my life, and it took a lot of courage to get there. Yes. And I know many people can feel that way. Mm-hmm. I think one of the simplest thing that helped me, apart from reading and reflecting about my life, reflecting a lot about my childhood too, was to set a goal to find that vision.
Mm.
Because I struggled for a long period in this space where you want to do something, but you don't even know where to go. And then, you can get trapped in there, and, you don't have clarity, and you have to set the goal to find that clarity. You have to tell yourself, you tell your mind to follow that step. I need to find clarity. And for some reason, I did that. And it just, things I started to find some information that made me think, oh, this is a possibility. Oh, here, this is something else, and, attaching all these things, connecting dots, it allowed me. But I think, getting into that mindset of exploration, but with the intention to find that clarity, is really what helped me to get where I am today.
It all starts with clarity. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'll admit it, I didn't have clarity in the beginning. Right? I just needed out. And it was a very hard path because of that, to be honest with you. I mean, I'll just be completely transparent. It took me a lot longer to achieve the level of success that I wanted to achieve, because I didn't have that foundation. And I think clarity is that foundation, right? Because when we can really see who we want to be, where we want to go, what direction we want to be, going towards, it makes it infinitely easier. Because the thing about being an entrepreneur is we can get distracted very easily by other things in our life that don't necessarily serve us or keep us on that path of clarity and purpose. But when you do have clarity, the magic happens, because you can say no to the opportunities that don't serve you and yes to the ones that do. But you first have to have that clarity. I agree with you, Alexandria. I think that's so important.
Exactly.
So you were in corporate, you started to get this clarity of thought. What did that look like? When you were starting to understand, like, hey, I could do this, were you visualizing? Were you writing things down? Take us through a little bit of the steps that you took, if you don't mind.
So to get this clarity, I started to do, of course, some research. But as I told you before too, I explore a lot my childhood, my early interests too. I think it was important, because for me, it was important to find something that it truly was me. I lived a path, the corporate path, the finance, the MBA, economics. So I was living another script, and I wanted to start writing my own. And this is when I said, if you're not afraid to fail, is we're always afraid to disappoint our parents, the people around us, society. And then we choose in function of that, what we think they want us to do. And for me, I came to a point in my life that I said, I want to finally do something that it really comes from inside me, that it's me. And you find freedom on that. But it takes a lot, it's very difficult, and it takes a lot of courage to do. And I'm still exploring possibilities. I only started this 1 year ago, and but it's amazing. It's amazing.
That's so amazing. So, congratulations to you for facing your fears and doing something that is a little scary, right? I absolutely love that. So, it sounds like, the first step is getting that clarity, that vision, identifying what you want. So, really aligning with, like you're saying, the things that really make you passionate and feel purposeful, things that you're naturally skilled at and talented in, right? Also, making sure it's aligned with your personality, your values. I went through the same journey and I realized that I wanted something a little bit more. I wanted to really help people on a different level. And the thing about failing, I have a friend. I worked with her a couple months ago, and we were working through limiting beliefs that I have because we all have them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, if you didn't have this limiting belief, let's just say in a universe where that limiting belief does not exist, right? How would you show up differently? What would you do differently? It became so expansive. And I realized how much potential within myself already existed that I wasn't tapping into. And I said to her, you know what? If I didn't have this fear, I would probably start calling really big companies and going after the CEO directly, like really big companies, right? Well, why don't you try it? I said, oh, okay. So it went from I'm afraid to let's play with this a little bit and just see, right? Kind of dip our toe in the water, if you will. You know what? I got a reply back. And it was pretty powerful. Because this was a CEO of a Fortune 100 company. Very
Wow.
big, huge global company, right? I was not expecting that. And it turned into a friendship. Was not expecting that. But this limiting belief, these fears sometimes that we have, really do hold us back from achieving that full potential. So, what if we didn't have these fears? And what if we dipped our toe a little bit? And, I'm not saying plunge head first, completely dive in. Of course, you can do that, not a problem. But try dipping your toe a little bit and just kind of see what happens and play with it. And I think a lot of us would be surprised by the result that we get. But take us to, okay, so now we know you left corporate finance background, you're into entrepreneurship now. What fears were holding you back that you had to kind of say, you know what? I'm done with that. I'm going to try this and we'll see what happens. Did you have a specific fear that was holding you back, do you think?
Well, I think, yeah, for sure, for sure. I had fears that were holding me back, and you brought a very good point. And this is what I wanted to get into, all those limiting beliefs that we have. And for me, it was this idea that, you have to go to school, get a career, and then you have to study what is supposed to be financially success. You can find some financial success with it, and then move up the ladder, and this is what you're supposed to be. So it's really social conditioning that and then you have to start questioning all this. Is this really the path? Is people that they're been transferring ideas from one to another, but it's time to question all these things. And for me was that, I was always brought up thinking you have to do this and that. And then also one very limiting belief that I had is that it was too late for me to do it now. It's like, no, now you worked so many years in finance, you studied this, you've done this forever. Like, why now? You're middle aged, you're going to change career and do something different. It's too late. It is it. So it's just, what you have to do to overcome all these limiting beliefs that keeps you totally stuck, frozen from taking action.
Wow. That's so powerful. I think so many people can relate to this, right? Because they've been in a career for a long time or an industry for a long time, or they're a certain age and think, oh, I guess this is just my destiny, right? I guess this is just where I'll stay. And I'm the same as you, very similar. Late 30s, right? When I'm 40 now, but yeah, late 30s when I transitioned. And I thought the same thing. Am I ever going to make the amount of money I did in corporate? Is it too late for me to learn these new skills, right? How can I do this? Do I have a support system? And you'll talk yourself out of something really quick. But the reverse is also true. We can talk ourselves into something as well. So the internal dialogue that we have in our minds is really important. And to note that, hey, everybody, guess what? We all have limiting beliefs, all of us. And these limiting beliefs, they come from a mixture of how we were raised, our household. It could come from school. It could come from your neighborhood, church. I mean, literally anywhere, limiting beliefs could be, the origin. So we all have them to a certain extent, but it's important to recognize that they don't have to hold us back, that it's a choice, right? To stay there. I do believe that we're not trees, we're not planted. We can move freely about, right? So I'm curious. You had this limiting belief that maybe I'm too old for this. How'd you overcome that?
I think for me, it was doing the exercise to envision my life, the end of my life, in fact.
Wow.
So to say, what I would have wanted to be done, you're like 80, 90 years old, and saying, what would I have done good for my life? So I said, what is the choice to get in the future to regret not having tried, or to at least be happy with yourself because you tried? So for me was that to picture the future, myself in the future, and regard my life making one or the other choice.
Yeah. Regret weighs a lot more than failure. For anybody that's listening to this, I think anybody can resonate with that. There's nobody that's perfect. There's any point in time, anybody can look back at their lives and say, you know what, I regret that. Why didn't I do that? So it's a lot easier to fail, even though that's really a hard concept for a lot of people in the, short term. It's really not a failure. There's no such thing as failure. I really believe that. The only failure is not trying, don't you think?
I completely agree with you. The only failure is not trying. And one of the things that I have reflected a lot in the past years, that helped me to go through all this is, what I was telling you before, you were always afraid of disappointing others, disappointing, what is, social rules, what you're supposed to do. But in the end, you come to the realization that you're failing to your own self because you're doing what you're supposed to and not what you want to. So in the end, who do you, the choice is that who you want to fail others or you fail to yourself. And you have the choice there.
Wow. That is so powerful. So powerful. And honestly, who are we all trying to impress? Right?
Really?
I mean, who are we trying to impress? It is so much more freeing, don't you think, when you let go of the expectations of other people? It's a chain, I feel like, that so many people wear and they don't even know is there. They don't even realize they're shackled up to this chain that's binding them. And it's that expectation that we think other people are going to be disappointed, but our minds tend to go to worst case scenario first, right? So we think, if I fail, I'm going to disappoint my mom, my dad, my friends, my brother, my sister, whoever. What if you succeed, my friends? Have we ever thought about that? What if you succeed? And if you try long enough, I promise you will. Do we think about that? And I feel like so many people don't even consider that success is actually an option for them. Don't you think? Do you encounter that as well?
Yes.
Yeah. What advice would you have for somebody that's terribly afraid they're going to fail at something? Maybe they have a pretty good job right now. Their mom and their dad really want them to stay there. Right. But they know they're not aligned with their purpose. What advice do you think you could give somebody? Because I know a lot of people are listening, to get somebody to go to that next level and say, you know what, what if I do succeed? What do you think? What would you say to them?
Well, definitely there is one of the first advice is to start questioning many beliefs that we hold, including our belief about success, because we were raised believing that success was having money. And today, I don't think that. I think, of course, I want to have money and I want to be successful financially. But there is one aspect of success, and there are many other very important aspects of success. You can meet people that are very rich, but they are miserable inside. And I think true success comes when you become who you really are. That's the ultimate success.
I agree with you. And, when you're in alignment with your authentic self, there's nothing more freeing than that, folks. You're not wearing a mask. You don't have a chain. You're free to show up as you are. And, the interesting thing about this, I don't know if you're a studier of vibration or energy, Alexandria, but they've found that the frequency of authenticity, right? The vibration of it is the highest. People really, really respond when somebody's their authentic selves. So if we think about, you aligning with, we start off with clarity and aligning with our strengths and doing things that make us feel whole and feel good. And then we do it with authenticity by showing up as we are, not trying to be somebody else or aligning with what other people expect of us. You become so powerful. You can't be hidden anymore. People start searching you out. It's actually kind of an incredible thing. And I feel like it's a resonant energy that you put out when you're authentic and really just aligned with who you naturally are. It's very powerful, right? I mean, I've seen the transformation happen with my own self, but have you experienced something similar?
Yes, definitely. But I have to say, this is unfortunately, most of the people, they don't have the patience to go through, because this is like something that it takes time. And I would say, I admit, for me, letting go all these social expectations and all that, I'm still working on that. I still have to work on many things to free myself, but I am in the path. But it takes time, and I think in many cases this is why most people sometimes they choose, an easier path, which is to continue where you are. Um, what I advise people in a situation like that is just to come to terms with the decision. If you take this path or the other one, is your decision, and you're conscious about it. You're conscious about the pros and cons and where that would lead you at further down in time. And I think when you take that perspective, like what I was telling you about, yourself dying and having retrospect of your life, I think that's a very awakening exercise that you can have, that can allow you to make a decision. What happens is that many people, they just continue the same path and complain, right? It's your choice. We have the choice, right? We have the choice, but we have to be patient, because these things, they don't happen overnight. Changes, they don't happen overnight. Even with our limiting beliefs, it takes time to change them, because you can change those beliefs, even scientifically, with neuroplasticity, you can change your brain, but it doesn't, you don't change it from one day to another, or on 1 week on another one. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes action, and it takes patience.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So true. You hit on something that I really believe in. Watch the complaining that you are doing. And are we taking stock of that? Right? Because I used to be such a complainer. Right? I think a lot of people can relate to that. But I was such a complainer. I complained about everything. And you know what? I was terribly unfulfilled. I was not happy. And when I started reprogramming my mind, and that's something else you said, is the neuroplasticity of our minds, right? We're not trees, we're not stuck. We can move about, we can change. When I started reprogramming my mind by taking responsibility, by taking action, by incorporating gratitude as a practice into my daily life as well, it really transformed my thinking. And I went from somebody who was a constant complainer to somebody I may still complain. I'm only human, right? But I definitely watch the words I say, how I say them. I'm very conscious of my speech. I make sure not to, if I complain, I try to catch myself, right? And find the gratitude in any situation. And you're right, it does not happen overnight, this neuroplasticity that we're talking about. But if you do it with enough time, repetition, action, and patience, the rewards will be tremendous. And you can actually transform into a completely different person. And that's another thing I like to talk about with people as well. We think that transformation must take years and years and years and years and years. But you know what is really cool? We see examples in nature all the time. We see a caterpillar turn into a butterfly, and that doesn't take years upon years upon years upon years, right? So it is possible to have transformations happen, but you have to be consistent with it. You have to, acknowledge your present state, and then have a clarity of where you want to go. I think if you combine all these different things, it really expedites that process for you, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. I think, if you want faster results, it's being willing to take more risk,
Yeah.
more action,
Yep.
being consistent and discipline. It's everything. To rewire your brain with a new mindset is truly start being that, right? Taking action every day, and then it just happens. So the more you do, the more consistent you are, will allow you to see closer results, definitely.
I love that. See,
Yeah.
it's all possible, my friends. And just think about it. I would love anybody who's listening to this right now to do an exercise for me, for Alexandria today. What if you weren't afraid to fail? Maybe write down a couple things. What would it look like? What would you do? Would you start a business? Would you speak on stage? Would you write a book? Would you share your story? Would you do something else? I don't know. Ride a plane. Maybe you're afraid of flying, right? What fear can you face today? Write it down, and then let's get a clarity of what that would look like. What would the future vision of yourself look like if you started to embrace those failures and started dipping your toe a little bit and playing with the idea of taking a little bit of risk? It would change your life. So maybe everybody could write down some things that they're afraid of, start to unravel why. Why am I afraid of that? Right? And what would it look like if I embraced it? That's pretty powerful, Alexandria. What do you think?
Yes,
Do you think
awesome. And just to add to that, next to that failure and afraid, what are your things that you're afraid to fail? What one little step that I can take today to face it?
Today. That's the key word.
Yes.
Not tomorrow.
No. If you leave it for tomorrow, it's not going to happen.
Right. We're action takers.
Yes.
We're a bunch of action takers on this show. That's right. And that's the truth. I say that a lot. Action takers are money makers. They're change makers too, folks, right? Because an ounce of doing is worth a pound of theorizing. We can think ourselves to death and we'll never do anything. Or we can take imperfect strides to action and get better every single day. That's what it's all about. So take some action today. Alexandria's orders, not mine. And start actually living and not being held back by fear. Fear is a prison we must escape from, my friends, because we are so much more potential driven than our small, little, tiny fears that we have. Well, Alexandria, thank you so much for being a fantastic guest on the show. I really, truly appreciate it. Do you have any final closing words of wisdom that you would like to share for anybody today?
Well, yes, definitely. I think it's important, along with taking action, also to get in tune with our intuition and to find that inner voice that will allows you to make, decisions, important decisions, like we're talking today about big changes in our lives. So I think to taking those moments to be with ourselves, to listen to ourselves, mindfulness, meditation, so on, they are very important and essential during this path.
It's a path, it's a journey, and there is no destination.
Right. Life, the destination.
Yes, it's life. That's right. Well, thank you so much, Alexandria, for being a fantastic guest on the show. And thank you to all the listeners of Grasp Confidence Podcast. Guys, guess what? Last night I got news, big news, huge news, that this podcast is ranked in the top 15 in both Thailand and Hungary. So thank you to my international audience and friends for supporting this amazing show. Guess what? We're scratching the surface. We're top in 2 countries. Now it's time to take over the world in self-development and personal development land. So thank you so much, everybody. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, share this with your friends. More to come, folks. We will see you on the next episode. Take care.